Welcome to LDC Now, established by and for the Linux Distro Community and supporters of free open source software. Don't forget to interface with our magnificent mothership at www.linuxdistrocommunity.com. Chat with us on the IRCs, join us on the forums, or shoot at us on game nights. It's about damn time for LDC Now. What's going on, guys?
Hey.
How you doing, kleptos? Irish?
I think we got like a full board of stuff to talk about. We're gonna have our app pick. We're gonna have a newbie corner. We're gonna have a good discussion about bash aliases. We're gonna have myths and the usual great chemistry between all of us, which is very nice at this point.
I just want to hand it out to the chat room for a second for that ASCII art that just came up.
That's called spam, man. That's called spam. No, I got a question for everyone here. As far as the show is going right now, and this is our second episode of the show, let's talk a little bit about the Linux distro community, of which we all hail and have become a part of. Irish, how'd you get started?
I don't exactly remember. I just remember coming into the Mumble every now and then and didn't really see too many people. I would just come in for help and then leave. But wanted to do more stuff with in the Linux world, and the other forums, the other distros that were on, they didn't really have a great community. So I think I found the IRC channel, and it was I just felt right at home. What about you, Morning?
Yeah, I definitely went searching. I'd been a part of several different distros and their communities, and I definitely found that one thing that was a highlight to me about the Linux distro community is the intention on being friendly and helpful above anything else. And that's definitely one of the things that when I was looking for a community, that was one of the highlights that stuck out to me. And yeah, I'm definitely glad I found the Linux distro community, because it is a helpful, friendly place, and we do strive to be helpful above anything else. There's not a lot of bashing. There's there's not a lot of the stuff you find in some communities of the Linux world.
Yeah, I found it by accident, and then I just hung in and just kept hanging out, and I got a lot of help from PDQ and IQ Base and the other guys and gals over there. And what's great about it is, everyone loves Linux. Everyone's talking about Linux. It's not about what distro is better, this one or that one, or what have you. It's really about, what's great about Linux and what you're experiencing about Linux itself. What is it you're using it for, and how you're using it, and how you could be using it better. And I think that is so much better than what I've been exposed to in the past on various forums and IRC channels, and it's very supportive and very cool. It has a lot to offer. You got the forums, you got the RC chat room, you've got Mumble, where we just sit here and chat back and forth. You got game night, where people shoot each other and kill zombies and do Counter-Strike and whatnot. And it is, like I said, a magnificent mothership, and it's something that everyone's really gotten involved in, and we all sort of play different roles, but PDQ is the queen.
Yeah, I definitely do appreciate the game nights that have happened here. It's really cool because we also, I can touch on the fact that the LDC has several servers, and they're all available. There are links to all the different Xenotic servers. There's a No More Room in Hell server. There's a Minecraft server.
I was just going to say there's a Minecraft server. There's a Team Fortress 2 server. We have, and if there's enough people playing a particular game, I'm sure we would create a server for it.
We have a Team Fortress 2 server? That's awesome. I'm totally playing there.
Yeah, the listing of the game servers is on the LDC site, so it's linuxdistrocommunity.com/games, I believe.
And also something else I forgot, they do have a Media Goblin server, so that you can upload all your screenshots and things, and it's kind of like one-stop shop for Linux and for the Linux community itself. Very supportable, very supportive, very helpful, and really helped me out. I thought I knew Linux fairly well, but it's always something you learn more, and that's really the goal about the channel itself, to help people out. People come in with a variety of questions about different distros, and everyone there uses different distros and can help out. I mean, hell, I've heard of people running distros they don't want to run because they just want to help people when they came in to ask for help, and I think that's beautiful, man. It's an awesome thing.
Yeah, you always get these stuff like if you want to learn such and such, you run this, or if you want to learn Linux, you do Gentoo or Arch. But I feel like being part of the LDC, that you get to learn more about Linux because there's so much variety that you just learn much more about the different distros and everything than just being on a particular distro for however many years.
Yeah, it's definitely great to have so many people doing so many different options, and yeah, I definitely am glad to be part of the LDC.
Hey, Morningstar, we got an app pick. Tell us a bit about that, because I kind of came in late on that, and give us the gist of what that's all about.
Well, today in the app pick section, we're going to talk about dmenu, and we can jump right into that right now. Hey Linux users, today we're going to talk about our app pick, dmenu. If you're new to lightweight window managers or tiling window managers like Xmonad, i3, you might notice that there's not really an application launcher, so that if you want to enter a command, you've got to enter it in terminal and then minimize the terminal. So the question is, besides key bindings, besides having an application menu, how do you launch your applications? That's where this comes in. dmenu is great for this. So with dmenu, if we wanted to start it from the terminal, we type dmenu run. As you can see, we have the bar up top with the blue selection tool, and then we can type in, let's say, urxvt for a new terminal, and then there we go, we have a new terminal. So you might look at this and go, well, that doesn't really match your desktop, which is where this comes in. dmenu is highly configurable. You could, in this case, we can set the panel background for NB, the selection tool background for SB, and the selection tool foreground for SF. As you can see, they use hex colors. Now look at that. That matches a little bit better. So we'll keep that one. What do you do if you don't want dmenu at the top and you want it at the bottom? This might be, in this case, you can't see the top panel. -B. Now dmenu is at the bottom. You can also use -P and then do a prompt name. In this case, we'll do LDC Wow. And now at the bottom, you have a prompt. So as you can see, you can change and tweak a lot of things about dmenu to make it fit your personal needs. So what is dmenu really for? I have it key binded in my window manager. So let's say I want to run play on Linux. You might think I'd have to type out play on at least. However, there's a neat thing about this. Lay on still brings up play on Linux because play on Linux contains the words lay on. So you can, if you don't quite know all the spelling or you miss a keystroke, you can generally still use dmenu for all your needs. So let's say you actually want to open a terminal and then run a command. We can use -E, and in this case Ranger. And there we go. So as you can see, dmenu is like literally running the command in your terminal. The only difference is that you don't actually have to have an extra window open, and dmenu collapses after it's finished. So I hope that this widens your view a little bit about what you can do with a tiling window manager to make your life a little easier, and I'll see you next time. That's the app pick for dmenu. I definitely had somebody ask me earlier today about how to go about saving that so that they can just always use the same key to open it. And I touched on it a little bit in the app pick itself, but I want to mention that that's going to depend a lot upon your window manager. And when you go to have the key binding in your window manager to run dmenu, that's when you'll put your whole configuration in on that same line.
I've seen some screenshots on Reddit, like user porn, I mean Unix porn, and I mean there's some amazing things that I've never even dared to try to do on Linux, and so I'm totally lost. I never even heard of dmenu before, but it's really great to get more exposure to different sides of Windows managers and DEs and how you can use them, and whether or not you're just running straight kind of GNOME 2 style, or you're doing got a tiling manager or whatever have you. It's cool because it's different. My Linux setup is way different from your Linux setup, and that's the beauty of Linux. And we also have a newbie segment we're gonna do that I did earlier about bash aliases. Not to say I know everything about bash aliases, because I don't, but I gave you the raw basics, and it's very easy enough to do. Have you guys applied any bash aliases yet?
I actually have. Oh, go ahead.
No. Explain your alias.
So after seeing the little segment there on bash aliases, I totally went in to check and make sure I could do it in ZSH, which is also glad I can do aliases. And I set up an alias to do my normal every couple hour update of my system.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I was definitely after this show, I'm going to set up an alias, so I just type in whatever and it will update my system, because I do that at least twice a day.
Yeah,
I have a bunch of bash aliases, and what it is that I use for bash, but now I'm on ZSH, and they still work on ZSH. And one I have in particular is that I learned from the Arch Wiki, where if you're using Btrfs and you update via Pacman, there's this little program called SMP that logs everything and allows you to roll back, just in case something bad happens. And that in itself is a bash alias, but it could be used for anything. But what were you going to say, Morningstar?
No, I was going to say that one of the great things about these aliases is that you can apply them to any task. I think that's actually a really great thing to have, because it does shorten if I want to update something, or if I want to run a command that I run 3 or 4 times a day. I was really glad to learn about the aliases from you.
Well, I think that as the show goes on, I'm gonna learn a lot, man, because you guys are gonna come upon something I have no clue about, I've never used. Hell, I didn't even know about dmenu, so I'm gonna be surprised here, and I think that's gonna be what's great about the show. But let's go ahead and get into the newbie section of the bash aliases anywhere, and we will continue from there. Okay, Linux users out there, let's talk about something simple to do and fun. That is to create a bash alias. A bash alias is nothing more than an alias, another name for a command that you run all the time. Whether it's cding to your favorite Dropbox folder, or whether it's starting and stopping some systemd service, or any command you do within the Linux terminal that is kind of painful to do. Typing it all out every day, or digging through the history trying to find that command you did before. Why don't you record that command and keep it and rename it something cute, something that you can remember. So let's get into the basic format. Bash aliases can be simple, or they can be advanced, but we're going to keep it simple here. Here's the basic structure. What we want to do is to do one thing, to go back one folder. Easy as enough. You've typed cd space ...
1,000 times by now if you've used Linux for at least a year. So we're going to make it even easier for you. Here's the structure. Alias, dot dot. The dot dot is the alias itself. So make note of that. Equal, quote, cd, dot dot, quote. Then run the alias, dot dot. See how easy that is? Isn't that nice? Imagine you had a billion of those different aliases that you could run different commands that you can remember the name of, and you don't have to type it all out. Very productive, very easy to do. Now, we're going to go a little further with this. Let's run 2 commands. There's different operators in Bash that do different things, but we're only going to talk about 2 of them today. What we want to do now is to not only to go back one folder, but we're going to look at that folder. Alias, whatever, equal cd space dot dot. Now, I could use the semicolon here, and the semicolon, what it does, it just runs the next command, whatever that command is, regardless if the other command had failed, or you used the wrong command. We don't want to do that. We want to use the ampersand, the double ampersand. So, cd space dot dot space double ampersand ls dash lah quote. And then you type in the alias. Whatever. See, we're in the home folder now. We went back a folder, and now we're looking at the directory itself. You can have bash aliases for whatever it is you want to do. Something you do every day on the daily. Even certain functions you need to do. I have bash aliases to put my man pages on the website, on my website itself, not my website itself, but on my browser, so I don't have to look at it in the terminal, or whether it's to remove crap from Chromium, or really anything you can think of. I got a bash alias to look at the cron logs. I've got bash aliases for just about everything, whether it's, Pac-Man aliases, Yoward aliases. It's really up to you, and it's really a way to save time and get things done at the same time. And what's great about Linux is that there's so much to it. The functionality is so vast that we'll probably never understand it all. But the beauty of Linux is it's on your machine. It's your Linux. You do with it what you want to do. So make your aliases and break them and fix them and learn how to do it properly. That's how I did it. Now, this is important. If you want to make your aliases stick, what you need to do is, if you're using bash, go to your .bash rc file and add those in there, just like you see them. And if you're depending on your distro, you're already going to have some bash aliases in there anyway. So just add them to the bottom of that page, and there you go. You're done. And I want to know what bash aliases you use and how you use them. And we're going to have a lot of fun tips and tricks and tutorials coming up every Sunday. So stick around, stay tuned, and have some fun. We'll do this again.
Okay, now about people understanding Linux. They don't understand Linux unless you use Linux. You can't say you understand it unless you use it. And so there's all these little myths I hear, like man, bear, pig, or Loch Ness Monster. So, do you have any myths, that people have told you about Linux, about the things you need to do in Linux you absolutely need to do, but really and truly and honestly you don't have to do? We'll start with you, Morningstar.
I definitely had the myth come up that Linux was a hobby OS, and it was one that I kind of watched for a while. But one thing I can say about that is definitely that after using Linux for a long time, I find out that your phone runs Linux, your cable box runs Linux, the satellite that circles the Earth runs Linux. Most of the servers around the world are running Linux. So when I hear people kind of go on about how Linux is never going to be a competitive operating system, I might not say it out loud, but I definitely laugh to myself about that one now.
What about you there, Irish?
Well, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is that if you switch to Linux, you have to be in the terminal. You have to do this in the terminal, you have to do that in the terminal, but there are plenty of GUIs out there that will help hold your hand, especially learning right off the bat. There's a GUI for updating your system. There's plenty of software centers and many distros out there that help you install. But if you decide to do terminal, you can do everything in the terminal. It's not just only a terminal-based OS like MS-DOS, like to say.
Yeah, as far as the terminal goes, the terminal is like there for you if you know how to operate in that sphere. You know, it's kind of like if you need to do something that needs to get done, you need to do it, just quick and dirty. Just get right to the terminal and do your business. But we don't stay in the terminal 24 hours a day on Linux. We have GUIs, we have Xorg, we have applications. So that's a terrible, terrible myth. One of my myths was that I've had people tell me this. Well, isn't Linux users and Linux software like socialist, kind of socialist, and done that harm free enterprise? And I'm like, socialist? Where do you get that from? You think the idea of free software, free open source software, is socialist, but yet somehow like 50 or maybe or more of the Fortune 500 companies, they use open source software. A lot of people are using Firefox, they're using Apache, they're using all these different softwares. And it doesn't harm free enterprise, it helps free enterprise. So you're not, locked into sort of, the vendorism, or you're not locked into people like, Adobe or anybody else. And so that software is available to you. If you have a small business, Linux is a godsend. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that assessment.
Yeah, I definitely feel like there's a lot that it is used for, and that I think that one thing I've come up that brings me to another thought was that either has to be either free software or proprietary, and that's just a small myth. But I definitely feel like there's a lot of proprietary software that is usable and awesome that's on Linux.
People use Firefox and Thunderbird. Okay, that's free open source software. Okay, I don't know how many businesses use Firefox and Thunderbird. Okay, but think about it. Okay, 90% of all commerce happens because of Linux and BSD servers, and most of that is free open source software, or somewhat similar with a different type of license. So, you can't go to Amazon.com and shop without Linux.
Yeah, Linux is definitely, people think it's just like a desktop or a server thing, but it's embedded in cars and phones and a whole bunch of stuff that you would never even believe that Linux could be in.
Yeah, like I mentioned
NASA.
earlier. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Like I was saying earlier, that there's satellites, and most cable boxes run Linux. You get things like anybody who's got an Android phone, that's Linux as well. So it's all over the market, and there's a lot of enterprises using free software. So if it was really harmful to free enterprise, I don't think we'd see the same reaction.
Well, think about people who are locked into Microsoft and all the madness of updating. And let's say you have a business where you have 500 workstations, and you've got to update all those workstations once, pay through the nose to Microsoft. Okay, that's vendor lock-in, and you're stuck with that. Okay, but a lot of people are not moving to Linux. How many businesses use LibreOffice? There's another one. This bothers me. Okay, I'm getting heated. I'm getting mad because I think of all the stupid myths that people come up with. Here's another good one. Linux software is vulnerable because it's open source. Yeah, because it's open source. That's why it's vulnerable. Okay, then why is it that we hear about Apple coming out with all these different encryption problems, or their SSL goes to fail, all these different things? If it's closed source, we don't know what the problems are. I would rather have like Bash or SSL or whatever, come out and say, oh, we have a problem, and then we can fix it because it's open source. Anybody can put their hands on it. Then have it closed source and no one knows for 5-10 years. What are you guys' thoughts on that? God, I'm getting pissed.
I can definitely say that I've written, a couple applications, and one friend of mine on GitHub, when I put my code up, he actually wrote, he wrote to me and suggested a fix. He said, you have a memory leak right here. And I mean, if I had closed sourced my application, I would have gone through however many releases I went through with that problem being in there. So I definitely feel like the open source and having a community work on it, though, yeah, you get the mythical man month where projects might take a little longer than expected when you have a large community working on it, but the whole community has access to it, and somebody can come along and say, dude, there's a problem here, and point it out, and then somebody else can come along and fix it.
Any thoughts?
No, I think you guys said everything that is right on the money.
Okay, all right. Here's my last one. Oh God, there's so many myths, but the idea that free software can't be good software. There's this whole thing that people think that if a software is created by some commercial entity, via Adobe or via whoever else, that software is great because there's 5,000 people all working on that software and it's going to be just perfect. But it's not always the case. We run our commerce off of Linux BSD servers, and so that software is free and open source, and so that in itself shows that free software can be good software. It's not about the software itself, it's about the developers.
Yeah, I can also say too with that you get a large portion of the time when there's not a lot of developers that can dedicate a lot of time to writing free software, but there's a lot happening more now than used to be because there are people catching on to the idea of the licensing, and free software doesn't necessarily mean you don't make money on it. I know plenty of people that sell free and open source software, but it is available for everybody to look at and work with. It doesn't have to be locked down just because you pay for it. After all, I mean, I play Steam, and that's not all open source, but because of things that have happened where people are waking up to the fact that the platform and the free software and the open source software platform is great, that's why we're seeing headway with things like Steam.
Irish, get any thoughts, man?
You guys are stealing all the good stuff here. So, no, you're saying everything that I would have said.
Okay, here's an example. Here's an example. Okay, think about Mac OS X. Okay, it would have nothing. It would have nothing to offer anyone if it weren't for BSD software. Okay, think about that. Think about all the little yuppies out there, using Mac OS software and all that. But it's all based on BSD. What would it be without that?
I have no idea. Yeah, that's a good food for thought right there.
Yeah, I definitely have seen.
It would be.
I definitely have seen a lot of times when there are things that are picked out. And the great thing about, and I've said this too in the past, the great thing about free open source software is if somebody like Apple comes along and sees something that's really powerful and good and stable, they're able to use it for themselves. And that's ties right back to your comment about free enterprise.
Exactly. I would hate to have these people. I mean, you have very intelligent people, journalists, running these stupid myths, on Ars Technica or TechCrunch and all these major websites, when a Google search of taking 2 minutes can find out that is totally bogus.
Yeah, even with like Canonical trying to do phone and all that, I think so. Canonical has done quite a bit to get Ubuntu and Linux out to the masses. Same thing with Red Hat Enterprise and SUSE Enterprise also. I think if it wasn't for that, for those companies, I don't think it would be as big as it is right now.
Yeah, I also really want to hand it to a myth I've heard, which was that Linux is only for people who are really tech savvy. And that's one great thing that I've seen Ubuntu do for the masses, is provide a stepping platform, just like OpenSUSE in a lot of ways is another great stepping platform to me. But there are Linux distributions out there that are, we talked about this last week in our distro types. There's a lot of Linux distributions that are targeted toward new users, which make it easier to make the jump. So cool, yeah. There's a lot of cool myths that come out that I think we can definitely come back and debunk from time to time. I think now is a good time to get into the news. What do you guys think?
Yeah, let's hear some. See what's going on in the Linux world.
Absolutely, let's do it.
All right, Kleptos, what's on the news today?
All right, we've got one here that I'm very suspect of, and that is Google to boost Android encryption joining Apple. I don't know how they're joining Apple. I mean, both have always had encryption, but nevertheless, continuing here.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the new thing is that it's going to be on by default. They definitely both had encryption for a while, and that you could opt to turn it on or off. But now I guess it's coming on by default, and that's making a lot of headway and raising a lot of eyebrows.
Yeah, I think probably the surprising thing was that many people, at least for me, is that I didn't even realize that the encryption was not on by default. So, and everyone, is very open to what they're talking about on their phones and Instagrams, Facebooks, Google Plus, all that stuff. So, it's probably a good thing overall that everything's going to get encrypted.
Well, I mean, here's my problem. The problem is, like, they say that they don't have access to the keys, and like I said, it's always been there, and it really depends on how it's implemented. I mean, you could have the Android sort of crap out, and then you had to hard boot it up again, and then possibly your file system could get corrupted. So it really depends on how it's being implemented and who has the keys. But again, I think the police have really made a big issue about this, and how we can't have it where we won't have access to everyone's phones and whatnot, whether or not you're a criminal or you're just a suspect. But it's a good step. It's a good direction. I think all of them need this. I think everyone needs to use encryption for some ways if you need to sort of hide some information or just keep it from nosy people. I think encryption is definitely necessary.
Yeah, also the thing about the keys, from what I remember looking at when I looked at this news, was that they're stored locally on the device, so that you actually, the key for it is only, only the device has the key for it, which is great. And I agree. I think that encryption in this day and age, when there's more to worry about than just criminals, you have a lot of, like, I don't want all my private data out there where somebody, if I'm at a Wi-Fi hotspot, can watch what I'm doing. I mean, you know what I mean? I would like to be able to have my privacy. I feel like we have to be technically involved in this world with Facebook and cell phones, and I think that we should definitely have the encryption in place. I think it's great that it's going on by default.
Yeah, but one of the downsides is, all the criminals get this too. And, the companies would share their data. But, small steps to something bigger, though.
Yeah, I definitely think it's moving in a forward direction.
Yeah, I do too. And it's not only just consumers that are now getting encryption now. We're getting journalists now that are getting some encryption, and they need encryption because the government has their eye on them. Here's an interesting article. One second as I tab over. The title of this article is Freedom of the Press Foundation launches secure drop an open source submission platform for whistleblowers and journalists. This is great because due to the recent Snowden documents, it's been shown that there's been a big eye on journalists and getting their information and taking the information depending on what they're exposing. And so it's very important. And this is also a free open source platform and some encryption here. It's very interesting. As I continue on here, one sec. Okay. Freedom of the Press Foundation has taken charge of the Dead Drop project an open source whistleblower submission system originally coded by the late transparency advocate Aaron Swartz. In the coming months, the foundation will also provide on-site installation and technical support to news organizations that wish to run the system that has been renamed SecureDrop. Originally created by Aaron Swartz in partnership with investigative reporter Kevin Polson, SecureDrop is a Python application that accepts messages and documents from the web and encrypts them for secure storage. Each source who uses the platform is assigned a unique code name that lets the source establish a relationship with a news organization without having to reveal his or her identity or resort to email. I think this is excellent.
Yeah, I think that's actually really, really cool, especially in a world where there is all sorts of controversy about what's being recorded or how much is being recorded. I think having places for people like news organizations and journalism to have a secure go-to, that's great.
Yeah, with the recent Snowden documents and going after journalists and going after whole entire news organizations, depending on what they're going to release about the government itself, I think this is a great idea, and it's another example of a great free open source project. And I guess they have somewhat like a public key that they share between each other, and they share documents, and this is excellent. And it's sort of like a testament to Aaron Swartz from the grave. It's really a great project, and I'm sure a lot of journalists will get a lot of use of it, because there was one particular website, I think it was called Greplaw, where they were going out of business because they couldn't find a platform where they could get data from information from their whistleblowers and from other people. And so I think this will really help out a lot, and just another example of Linux and free open source software.
Yeah, one of the other things, speaking of the open source and all that news, what was their new news about OpenSUSE this recently?
Yeah, it looks like they dropped a new beta for their 13.2 release, which will include the latest GNOME and the latest KDE, which will be huge, especially if you're a KDE or GNOME user, for sure.
I think it's really cool too that they're working on the latest and greatest. I think that's really a testament to a lot of Linux stuff. It's just these two projects. There's been a lot. Like I've used GNOME on and off throughout the last year or two, and I've definitely seen it come in leaps and bounds since 3.12, and 3.14 is just another big step.
No, it's good that this is coming out of the gate, having the latest and greatest, because it's kind of rough when you got older versions of stuff when you have a new release, and so that's good that they come out like that. I think they'll get a lot more play, and they've got just thousands and thousands of downloads from just the betas alone. So that's a good indication.
Yeah, I've tried a little bit of the 3.2, and it is definitely, it's sleeker, it's nicer. I think it's going to be an overall excellent release of the OpenSUSE.
I also an application, not an application, my God, but also one of my favorite desktop environments, LXQT, has come out with a new release, 0.8. I've been waiting with bated breath for 1.0, but of course this comes with full Qt support. It comes with some new theming, some more improved support for multiple displays, support for RGBA transparency, some PC man action, some file manager action, and some LXQT panel action. It's good to see that all these different desktops and window managers and environments that are coming out as alternatives. And when you have something like LXQT, here's why I like LXQT. It has the configurability of a KDE along with the sort of sleekness and snappiness of a lightweight distro, along with OpenBox, which is also great. You put all that together, makes a very interesting and compelling package.
Now, have you tested LXQT at all there, kleptos?
Oh yeah. I've run it for months. It needed a little work, a little tweaks here and there, but really a good desktop environment. Here's what I like about it, besides like I said, being configurable. But the thing about it is, it's kind of like I like to compare it to an XFCE kind of like desktop environment. Very light, very snappy, very configurable, but also you get the benefit of full Qt5 support. And so all those great apps that are out there that are using Qt, they run excellently in there. And it's like I said, I like to call it a lightweight KDE.
That's cool. I really would like to see. Can't wait till that 1.0 is released. I might try it out then.
Yeah, same here. I'm always looking to try new things to keep my Linux experience nice and fresh. So yeah, I can't wait for that 1.0.
Now, here's an article that I had some questions about. I'm sure you guys do too here. The Linux Foundation is actually, I got a drone project. Let me check this out here.
Oh, drones. Bring me pizza.
Oh, this is rich. Oh my god, this is rich. Linux Foundation fuels open source drone efforts. Not what you think, but it could be what you think. 3D Robotics and other drone makers have joined Intel and Qualcomm in an effort to formalize the creation of open source hardware and software for the unmanned aerial vehicles. The Linux Foundation, which sponsors some of the development of the widely used operating system, have now announced an open source drone software project. Drone code brings a formal structure and oversight to existing open source drone projects. And this is supposedly be used for like search and rescue, for journalism and things like that. What's your guys' take on it? Is it a bit too much? Are we just not ready for drones at this point in time?
Honestly, I have no clue whether we're ready for it or not, but I'm totally glad to see the Linux Foundation jumping on it. A lot of other places have too, and I've seen a lot of there's been reports of drones near the Seattle Needle and stuff like that. So I definitely am glad that there's going to be some open source movement in that field. I definitely don't know how I feel about drones in general yet, though.
What about you, Irish?
Yeah, I'm also on the fence too, because I thought Amazon, or wasn't it like Amazon was going to do like delivery, or your local grocery store can send you a 6-pack of beer or whatever through drones. But again, I'm still on the fence, but I'm still happy that it's going to be open source instead of Apple or Microsoft doing it, because can't imagine all the blue screens of death and all the drone crashes.
Okay, here are the applications that they say here. Environmental research, commercial applications, humanitarian work, search and rescue, and what's this one say here? Wildlife conservation. And like I said, I'm on the fence as well, and I'm kind of I guess there are some uses for drones. I mean, there are some uses for drones. I just hope it doesn't get into the wrong hands.
Plus, I would like it if maybe a drone had a thermal and stuff like that for search and rescue. You can instead of having dogs sniff and stuff like that, you can just attach so much good equipment for search and rescue for an earthquake, fire, stuff like that, and you can find people who are down there and surviving so that they can get to them quicker.
Yeah, I definitely think some of the applications of how they'll use it that you talked about are great. Between wildlife conservation, keeping a view on some land and what wildlife is there and the effects that we're having on our planet, and also search and rescue. I think those are great applications for drones. I definitely am on the fence because I don't know what they'll really be used for until we start using them more often.
Also, the FAA has not entirely allowed drones. I think they've allowed the FBI, I think, to use them for a couple of occasions, but they're not totally on board yet. And so I guess this is just in the planning in the works. And, we'll see. We'll follow it and see what happens. But, hey, it's coming from the Linux Foundation.
Yeah.
A quick one. What were you going to say there, Morning?
I was going to say, what you were talking about the next news, I was curious if there was anything else on the list today.
Well, we got KDE news here. We'll make this one pretty quick. Plasma 5.1 brings back some new popular features. Check this out. Aside from the visual improvements and work on features, the focus of this release lies on stability and performance improvements, with over 180 bugs slain since 5.1 in the shell alone. Plasma 5.1 requires KDE Frameworks 5.3, which brings in another great amount of fixes and performance improvements on top of the large number of fixes that have gone into Plasma 5.1. And so what they're saying is that when I initially tried out the Plasma desktop, there were some things missing from it that I normally have seen from KDE. And so they're bringing those back, but of course beautifying them and fixing bugs and things like that. And they're adding a bit more to the mix here. Let me run this down quickly. The Breeze artwork. So let's see. They've added some styling now, new styling things coming on for the Qt platform. They've got a new system settings module, lets you switch between desktop themes. Let's see what's else here.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, Plasma 5.1 brings back many features that users have grown into from its 4-point predecessor. Popular additional widgets such as icons only task manager. I use that. The notes widget, the system load viewer. God, that's necessary. Support for multiple time zones been added, and so not only are they prettying it and slaying bugs, but they're adding stuff that we like back as well. My only issue with KDE right now is that there are some old bugs that need to be slain. A few bugs that need to be slain, but it's good to see they're moving in a good direction, and I like the direction that they're going, and I hope for the best.
Yeah, my only real question about that is, as Dragon Keeper pointed out in the chat room, is are they slaying the bugs with plasma rifles?
Plasma rifles.
Yeah, I tried before I got into GNOME, I was a KDE guy, and there was something missing when I tried the Plasma 5 when it first came out. So I'm very glad to hear that they're going to be bringing back some necessary features.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because, like I said, I was on the GNOME ship in the last year or so, off and on, when I wasn't on tiling window managers. So I didn't actually try out any of the new KDE stuff, but I'm definitely glad to hear that they're working hard on making it a better system and more of what their users want.
Yeah, I was a KDE 3 fan, big fan, man, on Red Hat 6. And I'm not talking about Red Hat Enterprise Linux 6. I'm talking about Red Hat, the old-ass Red Hat 6. And it's good to see this. I've sort of floated back and forth between things. Right now I'm on Mate. I like LXQT. I've always liked KDE. And so it's good. I mean, you got all these alternatives, man. That's what makes Linux great, is that, there's people in the Linux Distro Community IRC right now that are just hopping back and forth to see if they can find the sweet spot, man. And you'll find it. I mean, there's so much available, you got no choice but to find it.
Yeah, I was on that ship. I just hopped between KDE, GNOME, Mate, LX. Oh yeah, I popped through just about every DE, and I've gone through a lot of the window managers, and I went on i3 and haven't been happier.
All right, now that we're into the news segment, I wanted to sort of ask a couple questions from you guys. Start with you, Irish. Originally, how did you get into Linux? And what made the switch for you? And what got it for you? What was really good about Linux for you in particular?
Well, I was going for my computer science degree, excuse me, and I was going to get my A+ because I was going to do like help desk situations and stuff like that. And if I ever got into like PC repair, I may see some Linux computers, and I had no idea how to fix Linux or anything like that. So I wanted to just try something new. I'm not like some of the other people who absolutely hate Microsoft. You have to give them credit where credit's due. They have brought to the forefront. Everyone's used a computer on the planet Earth just about, so you have to give them credit. And obviously, computer, anything like that, you're going to get different variations, and people are not going to be happy, and they'll make their own OSs. So I wanted to do something new and just to expand my computer knowledge. What about you, Morning?
Well, actually, I started on Linux about way back when I think it was like Ubuntu 8 or 9, maybe 6. I'm not sure. It was a while ago. But I definitely checked it out just because for me it was like, oh, this is something I heard about through this person. I'll go check it out. And yeah, I mean that was really the big thing for me, was just curiosity got me into Linux, and I kind of played with it for a couple of years. I'm definitely on the same team that there's good things that come from all the different operating systems out there, and that they all play a part in the technological community. But I definitely am glad to say that I have been able to make the switch to the one I find best suited for my needs, which is Linux.
Yeah, just a side note. My first distro that I ever used was Linux Mint 14, I believe, and then I just moved on from there.
I had an interesting story because my dad was in the Air Force, and he guarded the secrets, the top secrets, and on a weekend he invited me to see where he worked at. I don't know why he did this, but they were running DEC systems, System V Unix. And I'm like, what is this liney crap here? What are these little red and black lines? What's going on here? And some guy was explaining to me this is Unix, and this, Unix runs the world, and blah, 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 blah. And I really paid no attention until I was in a bookstore, and I saw a book on Slackware. And it came with Slackware itself. And I had as I said before, episode 1, 386 SX, okay, rocking it, balls slow computer, and I installed Slack. It took 8 hours to compile the kernel. It took, like 16 hours to finish the rest. But it was awesome when it was done. Now, there were some tears. There were some major failures on my part trying to read this book and trying to figure it all out. I mean, imagine that, okay? You got a brand new OS you've never ever used before. I was used to Windows 3.1 and all this other crap. But Slackware, you build it yourself. I mean, you go down and go in the kernel configs, and you got to add what hardware you're using. I mean, those days, okay? So it was great, and I've been on it ever since. I've sort of deviated back and forth, but I've always loved Linux.
Yeah, I actually wanted to mention that on my bookshelf over to my right, I have a full box set of Mandrake 6.0.
Mandrake, dude, that's going back. That's taking me back, man. I remember floppy disks with Linux on them, man. Insert floppy disk 305, and you're like, just put them back in. But it's something that you build. It's something that you make your own. It's something that you design. It's something you tweak. It's something you config. And that is just awesome sauce, man. There's nothing more I can say.
Yeah, I am definitely glad I made the switch. Anytime I'm on, playing a game on Windows or have to do stuff on, with school, I keep doing like key bindings for a Linux thing, and I'm typing in clear in the command prompt. I'm like, command not found. What's this? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm on Linux. So definitely, I'm glad I moved over to Linux for sure.
Yeah, I will totally chime in, and I definitely, when I go back to fix Windows computers, sometimes now I was saying this earlier, I get lost. I've been using Linux so hard for so long that I've almost become unfamiliar with Windows, especially Windows 8.1. I've never run it personally.
I've used it at a friend's house, and oh man, just to get to a regular, useful application list or whatever. It's just, oh my god. But I think today was a top-notch show, and we've got some good information and some good app picks and a good newbie section, man. And so let's pat ourselves on the back temporarily, and we'll have it up all on YouTube here very shortly, guys. Any final comments?
I would want to say if you guys have any requests for anything that you would like to know how to do for the newbie section, or even just a tutorial, or anything else you guys want us to talk about, please put in a forum post, and we'll do it for consideration.
Yeah, and I would even say also if you're not on the forums yet or you're on the fence, you're not sure if you want to switch to Linux, but again you have stuff you want to hear, leave a comment in the comments section, and then also don't forget to subscribe if you like the show.
Absolutely. Well, that is it. That is all there is. Another episode of LDC Now. Go to www.linuxdistrocommunity.com. And this was Morningstar, Irish Luck, and Kleptos, and we'll be here again next time.